What's going on YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled and today I'm going to be bringing you my Ares guide. Now before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to keep up with any content that I put out, I will be leaving a link to my Twitch and my Discord in the description below. Now, this is the first guard I'm going to be covering on my channel. And Ares was probably my first god that I ever purchased when I first got this game. You know, it's the god of war in a mobile. Why else would you not pick him? And he's still very cool, still holds up to this day. A solid A-tier god and a great guardian, a great offensive guardian to have on your team. He is a little bit tricky to understand. He has seen a couple changes here and there, and I wanted to go ahead and go over that as well as going over his builds. Now, Ares has seen a pretty big change with his passive. In Smite 1, basically, if you built Auras, he gained power. Now they completely reworked it. Now it does give his teammates additional stats based off of what type of auras or item that he builds. His aura already gives a whopping 20 intelligence and 20 strength at max level. It does start off at 1 and it increases per level. And then on top of that, if he builds protections, it grants his team strength. So hunters, or people who are building for autos or strength-based gods are going to get a lot of benefit from being around Ares, given the fact that you'll get an extra 12.5% of strength based off his protections. And then building cooldowns on him will increase intelligence. So your mages will actually get more damage, and your ability-based people will get more damage depending on how much cooldowns he builds. So they really completed him with this aura. I can't really showcase this because you really can't see it, but I will be showcasing the other abilities. But this passive is great. I definitely think it's one of the better aggressive Guardian passives that they've ever introduced. It's a really welcome change. So let's go ahead and move on to his abilities. So if you've watched my videos before, you understand that I typically go over the abilities in terms of the least important to the most important ability. And the crazy part about Ares is that all of his abilities are very important, and they all offer something different that's really integral to his kit. But if I had to pick anything, absolutely anything, it would be his 2, Call to Arms. It's a buff. It does give an aura of protections, giving physical and magic protections, 30 at max. And one of the reworks he got back in Smite 1 was that now his aura does give basic attack damage. Buff lasts for 6 seconds. This is a crazy buff, great for pushing objectives, pushing towers, pushing for Fire Giant, Gold Fury. And it's great in team fights because since you will already be building auras to make your team tanky already, just having an extra 30 protections on top of that will make it really difficult for people to just kind of dive his team, even though he kind of lacks a defensive option. So the fact that he has this to make his team tankier and kind of passively protect his team is always really great. Plus, this makes your hunters extremely scary if they're fighting with him properly. And to kind of just showcase this ability, it is his 2. As you can see, the aura is pretty wide, so it's going to be dang near impossible for his aura to not hit an ally to give them the protections, because you should be, in all honesty, you should be fighting this close to an Ares anyway because of all the auras he can provide. And how you know he popped it, it's kind of quick, but you see the aura around him. He used to do this little shield slap in Smite 1. He probably still does it, but I probably auto-canceled it by mistake. But that is what the ability looks like. Next, I want to talk about his 3. Now, his 3 hits incredibly hard. Probably one of the harder hitting regular abilities for a Guardian. Does magical damage per tick. It does do 7% of your intelligence scaling, but it also does damage based off the enemy's maximum health up to a max of 3%. So this can do insane amounts of damage, and it does scale equally as well to minions. So if you ever want to like flex him in solo lane, you really don't need to level this ability too much, but this ability is really nice to have to help clear. Pretty straightforward. They did change something now, where now when you're channeling this ability, you can fire the chains during the ability. which is your 1, which again we'll go over here in a moment. But you're also displacement immune, so moves that'll move you, like an Ares ult or maybe a kick from like Gilgamesh, or in this game, like Susanoo's pull, won't affect Ares while he's using this ability. So it makes it really hard to stop him from just DPSing your backline or even your frontliners and doing insane amounts of damage to them without having to waste a stun, which is what, you know, Ares is meant to do. He's meant to go in, do a lot of damage, soak up some abilities from them, and do crazy damage on top of that. And again, just to kind of showcase this ability, the cone is pretty forgiving and it channels for a pretty long time. But as you can see, it's really easy to see where it's going to hit. And with no items, this does still do a pretty hefty amount of damage, no items. And remember, as you build items, you actually gain more power. So this will actually help a lot. And then on top of that, your auras do affect you. So building cooldowns on this character will make your intelligence scaling go up, which in turn will make your 3 hit even harder. Again, it has a pretty decent range too. So don't be afraid to kind of just use this. You don't need to be all up in their face and using it. You can, you do have a little bit of space to use it. And real quick before I really go over it, just to kind of show you how the chaining works now. If you do this, as you can see, you can throw your chains in the middle of your 3. So it's pretty nice to kind of cover that if you're trying to just look for damage with your 3 and stopping people from stopping you from using your 1, which we'll go over here in a moment. Up next, we're going to be talking about Ares 1, Shackles. Now, this is Ares. This is probably his most important ability, and you miss out on a lot of damage if you're not able to hit this one, and it's very crucial for Ares players to always hit this ability. If you don't hit this ability, you're going to suffer. Basically, if you fire this off, this is a skill shot. It does tick damage. You can fire up to 3 shackles. The other 2 shackles only being able to be shot if you hit the shackle before it. So you can't shoot the second shackle without hitting the first one. You can't shoot the third shackle without hitting the first one. Another really important thing about this ability is that it cripples. So your Neath backflips, your Fenrir leaps and brutalize, anything that will make you move, the 1 will stop you from being able to do it. And good Ares players will be able to determine, hey, do I put all my shackles on this 1 person? Do I divvy out my shackles, putting it on 3 people, making it to where they can't move? And this is probably going to be your primary ability you're going to be leveling, considering the fact this is honestly his hardest hitting ability. Yes, the 3 does health damage, but since you're going to be using this so much more often, this ability is going to be way more integral in your gameplay. On top of that, it does provide a 15% slow, and it increases your movement speed by 15%. So it's very crazy, and I do believe, as it says right here, that for each enemy god you shackle, you gain movement speed. So if you shackle 3 people, you get a whopping 45% movement speed, which is absolutely insane if you can hit all 3 shots. But again, this is really hard to hit. This does have scaling with the initial damage is based off of your strength, so having extra protections will make the initial hit of the chain hit harder. And then the actual burning damage of it is scaled with your intelligence, which again, you get increased intelligence scaling by building cooldowns. So again, this is a double whammy. This is going to be very great for Ares players. And again, I wanted to go ahead and showcase these abilities. As you can see, the line is pretty small. 1 little miss, and how you can tell if an ability is going to hit is if the god lights up with red, or depending on what color you have it set to. And as you can see, it's not very forgiving. It is very much a skill shot, and while it doesn't really come out slow, it is really easily telegraphed since you're going to be running up on a lot of people. So just be ready to adjust your camera as you're aiming. And as you can see, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. And all 3 of them are going to be crippled for the normal duration. The cripple doesn't increase. It does, however, reset when you reapply cripple to somebody. So 1, 2, 3. As you can see, it does reset and does a pretty decent chunk of tick damage as you're doing it, as you're using it. And remember, your 2 increases your protections, which will in turn increase your strength, which again will make your 1 hit harder. So always be sure to pop your 2 right before you go into an engagement. And last, but certainly not least, we're going to be talking about Ares' ultimate, No Escape. This, again, is Ares. He is the Chain Master. If you played Smite 1 and the first game mode you've ever played was Arena, you pretty sure you remember, or even in this game, pretty sure remember running into your first Ares, and every like 40 to 50 seconds he would run up on you and grab you with these chains and then pull you directly to him. It's no different in this game. This ultimate is still pretty busted if you know how to use it properly. It's a great beads burner, does pretty decent damage, especially since they added another damage value to the one, or another damage value to the ultimate. It does stun, it does displace them, dragging them to his current position while he's ulting. And the initial damage when he's latching the chains onto you does have pretty decent damage, doing 140 initial damage plus 30% of your strength, which again, you get more strength based off your protections and your 2. And then the final damage does do strength damage, again, dealing 500 damage at max rank plus 60% of your strength scaling, with which, again, your protections will make this hit even harder. The cool thing is, well, even though this ability does take a little bit of time to channel, you do get a whopping 30% damage mitigations, 20% at level 1, 30% at level 5. So at level 20, you're going to be mitigating a lot of damage during this ultimate, so you don't need to worry about getting nuked. And since you're going to be building tanky anyway, that 30% protection is going to be absolutely insane. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and showcase this ability. Now, as you can see, this ultimate is pretty huge, dang near or just about the same range as his 2. So you pop this to give your entire team protections, you pop your ultimate, and it basically grabs the same radius. And it hits pretty wide, and you can move during this ult, so you can kind of reposition even though you're moving kind of slow. And just to showcase what it looks like, as you can see, drag them straight to you. They're stunned for a short amount of time, I believe for about 1 second. And then they are displaced, pulling everybody to this small spot right here. So it's a great beads burner, a great punishment tool if they haven't beads already. And again, since you do have a cripple, it is very likely that they're going to try to beat this cripple to make sure they get away from you. And then you can just run back up on them and then hit your ultimate and punish them very heavily. So the ultimate's great. One of the best team fighting ultimates in the game, personally. A great engagement ultimate. Even as a cleanup too, because it does so much damage. And since you can't build 2 relics in this game, you have to either decide whether to beads it and just take the damage, or build Aegis and take the CC but ignore the damage for a short amount of time. It's really up to you. So Ares is definitely a lot more punishing in this game, and that ultimate is just a great complement to his kit. So the last thing I want to talk about are his staple items. Now, since they kind of took auras out the game and they had to change his passive to compensate for that, there isn't any for real go-tos when it comes to building your auras. However, Gauntlet Thebes is still a staple if you're going for support, given the fact that it provides a whopping 55 protections at max stacks, which will directly affect his aura and will make his team hit harder and provide more protections. Prophetic Cloak is still another really good item, giving you 15 of each protection, and then you gain an extra 15% and damage mitigations, or more damage mitigations if your protections already exceed 350. With Ares, it's fairly easy to do so, so Prophetic Cloak is also really good. For your solo laners out there, Shield of the Phoenix is really good, provided that it gives you cooldowns, and it gives you some minor healing with his ability, so this is always really good. Spectral is always a good go-to for your people building crit, and plus it gives you cooldown rate, which is also really nice. Nemean is also really good. You know, you're already doing a crap ton of tick damage, you might as well make the Hunter's life a living hell dealing with this. Spirit Robe is always really good. I know in a previous video I said Mystical Mail isn't all that great. On Ares, it's a little different considering the fact that he can make the Mystical Mail hit harder. and the fact that it adds more to his tick damage. Stone of Binding is also really good since he does have two forms of CC with the chain and the ultimate, making his team already, since he already provides a really good damage buff to his team. Putting a protection reduction on enemy team and on enemy team gods with this item is also really great for him. You can build shifters if you want to. Again, this is kind of just a flex item, but shifters is really broken. So building this on Ares is going to be really great, considering the fact that he gains protections when he drops underneath a certain threshold of protection of health. So again, really busted item on him. Other items that you have, if you're looking for magical protection, obviously Void Stone is always really good, since it reduces their magical protection, so it'll make you and your mages hit harder. Genji's Guard, Oni Hunter's Guard is really good on him. Just getting all those extra damage mitigations, making his cooldowns come off pretty quicker. You also have Shoguns, which can give your team attack speed, and it gives you cooldown rate, so this is always really good to have on him. And then if you're looking for anti-heal, the best cards to build as of right now, Ruinous Ankh is always really great. Now that tanks have anti-heal item that gives both physical and magic protections with health, and it also gives 40% reduced healing, so really great on him. If you already have a lot of protections, which in most cases you will, and you want just a little bit of damage, the best items on him, in my opinion, Abshard, Divine Ruin is always really great on him as well. If I can find it. Divine, where are you? Well, you get the point. Divine Ruin is always really great on him as well. Here it is. It took pen away from this? That sucks. So Divine Ruin is always really great on him. If you want to meme, Gem of Isolation is always really great because it gives a 15% slow. But again, it's not something that you necessarily need. Another damage item you could consider was Totem of Death. Since it gives pen every single time you hit an enemy god, and this does stack for each chain that you hit. And the fact that it gives 20% or 20 cooldown, 5% pen, and 20 intelligence off rip is always really great. But in most cases, you're really not going to be building any DPS items. If you're taking him into solo, one DPS item is always really great. Is always really good. And in that case, you could either build Doomorph, or in most cases, Triton's Conch is a really great item for Ares. This is a new item that, and I've mentioned in a previous video, and I believe this is going to change a lot of what being a tank is. And Triton's Conch passively gives strength and intelligence on top of the strength and intelligence you're already going to be providing. So this is an absolutely amazing card on him. And then last but not least, the last thing I want to talk about is his ability combos. Now, like I mentioned before several times, you want to make sure that your 2 is active at all times before you go into a team fight. And again, it does not last that long. So having cooldowns on him is going to be very crucial to make sure you maintain this, because his cooldowns are very long. However, because they changed how his 3 works, you can engage with this 2, and then throw out your 3, throw some chains. You can do it that way. You can engage with the chains. How you play them in Smite 1, you engage with the chains second, and then after all your chains are on them, then you pop your 3. But the reason why they changed it now is because you can now engage your 3 to bait out their movement ability, keep channeling it, and then run at them with your 1, so they have to eat the rest of the damage of the 3. So it's a really welcome change, but a lot of movement abilities, especially when they start adding more OG gods, that combination of being able to cancel his 3 or use his 1 in his 3 is not really going to be all that great, but it's still a really welcome change. So what I can see in solo lane is throwing your 3 out to hit the enemy god, drag all the minions together, and when they're trying to stop you, then you throw your chain in the middle of your 3 and forcing them to eat a crap ton of tick damage. In other cases, sometimes you want to just pop your 2 and then engage with your ultimate. Sometimes you want to pop your 2, engage with your abilities, and then go for your ultimate when they used all their actives. It really depends on the situation. Most of the time, you're probably going to be popping your 2, engaging with your 1, and then engaging with your 3. But that's all I have for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the guide video. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank y'all for y'all's time, and y'all have a nice rest of your day.